Good morning, everyone. I recently got to 1,000 YouTube subscribers, which means that I can join the YouTube Partner Program and have YouTube show ads on my videos, and then get some of the money that advertisers pay for those ads. Now, I of course signed up for this right away because I want to see how it works, and I'd love to get an extra $1. But ads on the internet are lame, and if you don't want to see ads, you shouldn't have to see them. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how you can avoid ads on my YouTube channel. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. And the first way to do that is probably the best solution, and that is to avoid YouTube. YouTube is a big surveillance system. It primarily spies on you to maximize advertising revenue, but they've built all this infrastructure for tracking, recording what you do, and then trying to predict and even influence your behavior. And once they have all that stuff built, they're not just going to use it to try to maximize advertising revenue. They're going to try to use it for various other nefarious plots. And so it's probably best to just avoid it as much as possible. Now, to help you do that, I publish all the content that I post off of YouTube. Every time I make a video like this one, there's also an associated blog post. Now, you can access the blog where I post those videos by clicking on the link in the description. But let me go ahead and pull that blog up now. So you can see I have a blog post here for every video that I've posted recently. And that includes the video that I'm working on right now. Let me go ahead and click through here, and you can see that I have a text blog post here. And this is actually the notes for the video that I'm making right now. You can see that I have a place for video links here in the blog post. Now, I don't have video links yet because I'm still working on this video, but if I go back to my previous video about the PinePhone keyboard case, you can see I've got a little bit less notes there, but I do have video links, and I have video links to 3 video sites. One of them is YouTube, but the other 2 are not YouTube, and Odyssey specifically is interesting because I don't think their business model depends on advertising or surveillance. Now, I'm not entirely clear that they have a functioning business model, but whether they have a functioning business model or not, the fact that I can get free-to-me video hosting from them means that I can post my videos somewhere where you can watch them without having to worry about surveillance, at least from YouTube, or about YouTube video ads. The best way to follow my stuff, and to avoid all of YouTube, including the ads, is to subscribe to my blog using an RSS reader. There are a lot of options for RSS readers. Personally, I like to have a web service so I can access my newsfeed from multiple devices. And at that point, I need to either self-host a web service or pay someone else to host a web service for me. Self-hosting a web service is out of scope for this video, so I'm going to demonstrate an arbitrary paid web service RSS reader. Over here we have NewsBlur, available at newsblur.com, and they have a free trial, which is what I have set up here. And so in order to subscribe to my blog using NewsBlur, what we do is we go ahead and grab the URL of my blog, https://nattalk.fogcloud.org, and then we add, by clicking the add button here, that site to our NewsBlur feed, and it will pop up, and you can see that this shows all the posts that I've made, and apparently my about page for some reason, but all the posts that I've made, including this post that I'm working on right now, in a feed here. And stuff from before I subscribed is shown grayed out. Stuff after I've subscribed or today is shown as new, sort of like an email client or something. And if I click here, it will let me go ahead and get to the blog post, which would then let me get to the video links. So if you follow me via RSS, you can see everything that I post with no algorithm hiding stuff. And then if you follow a video link other than YouTube, you're able to watch the video without YouTube being able to spy on you or show you any ads. So that is the easiest and most effective way to watch my videos and follow my content without seeing YouTube ads. But that's not the only way. If you want to keep watching my videos on YouTube without ads, or if you want to access the entire web without ads, then luckily for you, it's your computer, and one of the things that you can tell your computer to do is to block ads. Now, I'll talk about a couple different ways to accomplish that, but setting up ad blocking is a good idea even if you don't really mind the ads, because in some cases it will reduce the amount of tracking that advertising companies can do on the web. Now, of course, this won't work on YouTube, but blocking ads will reduce the amount that advertising companies can keep track of you when you're visiting independent websites. YouTube is Google. Google is the biggest threat for tracking, so the fact that you're going to YouTube at all sort of overrides any benefits of blocking ads to reducing tracking. So probably the simplest way to block ads, at least on a desktop computer, is to install an ad blocking extension into your browser. There's a bunch of different ad blocking extensions. The one I like is called uBlock Origin, which is reasonably efficient in terms of CPU and does a pretty good job at blocking ads, including on YouTube. Now, once we're talking about browsers, this gets us into the question of which browser is best to be running and will be best for your privacy and security. Now, add-ons like uBlock Origin work great in Firefox and Chromium and Chrome, and probably a bunch of the smaller browsers that also exist, and some of which might be good from a privacy perspective. But if you're really interested in privacy and sort of digital autonomy, the absolute most effective browser for you is going to be a browser called ungoogled Chromium. Google Chrome is the most popular web browser right now, and it's developed and shipped by Google, and it's developed and shipped by Google with tracking built in. Basically, everything that you do in Chrome, Google gets a copy of the logs of those actions that you took for telemetry, for blocking malware, for all kinds of excuses, but they still get all your logs of absolutely everything that you do on the web. So there's no real way to run Chrome itself without completely eliminating any privacy you might have on the internet. Mozilla Firefox is a little bit better, but Firefox still collects a bunch of data with telemetry. The amount of effort that it takes to fix Firefox to really respect your privacy is significant. There are some projects that try to keep track of all the little things and provide configuration packages that fix them, but there isn't a good pre-packaged version of Firefox that is both up to date and eliminates all of the sort of privacy issues. Luckily, as part of the development of Google Chrome, Google also releases an open source version of their Chrome browser called Chromium. And Chromium, unlike Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, is not really intended as a sort of end-user browser, and therefore its default configuration is pretty close to being privacy respecting. The amount of effort that it takes to set up and maintain releases and configurations of Chromium that are good is less than for most of the other browsers available, and therefore there's a project that does it called ungoogled Chromium, which is here on GitHub. Regardless of which of the major browsers you use, my recommended ad blocking extension is uBlock Origin. And if you come over to its page on GitHub, there's links to the Firefox, Chrome, and even Microsoft Web Store, where you can go ahead and download and install them. If you're using ungoogled Chromium, as I would recommend, there is an extra step because the Chrome Web Store doesn't work, and you can use an extension called Chrome Web Store, which you can manually install. There's a link in the blog post in order to be able to install extensions from the Chrome Web Store, including uBlock Origin. Installing extensions into a browser is easiest on desktop, but it does also work on mobile devices, and uBlock Origin works fine on a couple different browsers for Android. There are some other options for blocking ads in addition to browser extensions. One that's extremely powerful is to use an ad blocking proxy like Pi-hole. Now, the way this is recommended to be used is to have a Raspberry Pi physical single board computer connected to your network, and then configure all your devices either through the browser or through the operating system, to use Pi-hole as an HTTP proxy. The way most ad blockers work is to block traffic to the web servers that serve the ads, and a HTTP proxy can do that great. And it means that you no longer depend on which particular browser you're using, or even whether there's a browser involved at all. In many cases, web ads will show up through embedded browsers or otherwise in non-browser apps. And so something like Pi-hole or Privoxy will allow you to block those ads through a dedicated proxy. It doesn't have to be its own hardware, although the Pi-hole setup where you use a Raspberry Pi is entertaining. Using an HTTP proxy to block requests to web servers that serve ads is actually a little bit more complicated than is strictly necessary. It would be even simpler to just block the DNS lookup so that the browser or other HTTP client can't find the server. And the simplest way to do that is probably to modify the hosts file, which your operating system will use as its first place to look to try to map a name into an IP address. And you can do this on desktop machines. You can download a big hosts file with all the ad servers that you want to block, go ahead and copy it into the right place, and that'll work. But the place where this is most exciting is on Android phones, where you definitely have a bunch of apps other than a browser that are going to be serving web ads. And so, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to try to install an HTTP proxy, especially external to the device, since you're likely to use your phone on a bunch of different networks. So the host file solution makes a lot of sense. Now, actually doing it is a little bit tricky because it requires that you root your Android phone. This is one of the sort of most obvious reasons why rooting an Android phone makes a lot of sense, even for sort of non-technical users. But once you go ahead and root your Android phone, all you have to do is install this program called Adaway, which is easy to do through F-Droid, and it will go ahead and put in a hosts file that blocks a whole bunch of different ad servers, and suddenly your Android device will be an awful lot less infested with ads. And so I absolutely recommend doing that if you are interested in less ads and less trackers and a better computing experience on your mobile device. All right, so that's what I have to say about blocking ads. I recommend blocking them. They're a waste of time and brain space. I also recommend avoiding surveillance. Data collection is like pollution. Each little bit doesn't seem like a big deal at all, and then 40 years later you die of cancer. Further, I recommend avoiding YouTube as much as possible. Having people's view of the world be warped by an algorithm designed to maximize ad revenue is kind of sketchy, and the clear evidence that the feed on YouTube is further biased for political and other reasons makes it even worse. If you produce videos, it's worth posting to other sites too and letting your users know that. And as somebody who views videos on the internet, it's worth reminding the people who make the videos that you watch that there are other places to post videos, and that you'd appreciate if they post in several places for a variety of reasons. So thanks for watching. Remember to click the link in the description to my blog and subscribe via RSS, and have a wonderful rest of your day.